evening, Who Dat Nation. Welcome back as we're about to preview, hopefully, New Orleans Saints getting back in the win column. Hopefully? Maybe? Possibly? I don't know. But I would much rather the Saints win than lose. I can say that confidently. All the things that have gone down over the past few months and the highs and the almost completely lows, I still want them to win football games. So the New Orleans Saints will be taking on the 1-11 Carolina Panthers. Saints are 5-7. Go ahead and say this. You lose to the 1-11 Carolina Panthers, hang the season up. That laundry has been washed and must now be dried. It is done. Task completed. So we're going to go over that today as well as get y'all's thoughts, give y'all an update to the injury report. And who dat? Lester Shibben. Good to see Chemo Slice, AJ Gaines, Edwin 6146, Randall, Offrack. That was German, so I got to scream it. James Garfall, Randy, Chemo Slice, everybody. TJ, who dat to you? Welcome on into the Who Dat Confessional podcast, where we cover all of the New Orleans Saints happenings. Also, Pelicans, please get a win tonight. I would appreciate it if y'all stop trying to be 500. Y'all are too talented. I know y'all are getting it together. Come on, Pels. You can't let the Chicago Bulls bench guy score 30 on you. Stop it. You're better than that. But you did come back and then beat the Clippers. Like, make it make sense. None of it makes sense in the world. Everything is confusing, and I don't understand anything about New Orleans sports. Why can't anybody be any level of consistent? Maybe I'm just screaming into, maybe I'm tanking out my frustrations on the Pelicans, and I shouldn't. They lost to the Bulls. The Bulls are like the Saints of the NBA. Stop it. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not cool. Right? You beat those teams. You beat them. No offense to DeMar DeRozan. You don't let Kobe White, not that Kobe, like new Kobe. Like nobody really knows Kobe like that Kobe. Kobe White scored 31 on you. Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent about basketball. I apologize. I realize the man's been in the league a while, but come on. Come on, Pelicans, get it together. New Orleans Saints are sucking. We don't need y'all to be doing the same daggum thing. But let's talk about injury report. Give you all an update on the injury report for the New Orleans Saints. How about we start with that? Upgraded to full participation is Blake Grupe, so we'll see him back, as well as Ryan Ramczyk and Eric McCoy. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. Derek Carr is still going through concussion protocol, as well as having his right shoulder evaluated, and that is something to keep in mind. Cameron Jordan is limited with an ankle injury. Juwan Johnson still dealing with a quadricep injury. Andres Pete with his shoulder injury, and then Pete Warner limited. Probably see Pete back. And for everybody that watches Zach Bond and covers, look, I love Zach Bond attacking in the running, and I actually love Zach Bond attacking against the pass. But defending the pass, no. Hopefully Pete Warner's ready to go. Rashid Shaheed is a DNP with his thigh injury, as well as Kendre Miller. Scary one here. Taysom Hill, foot and hand injury. Definitely need that man back. Isaiah Foskey, quadricep injury, and then Chris Olave with an illness. Do expect him to be back. Now, the Carolina Panthers, they've got Amari Barno is full. Here is their long, limited list. Tommy Trimble, one of their tight ends. Steven Sullivan, another tight end. Hayden Hurst with a concussion, tight end. J.C. Horn, cornerback. Marquise Haynes Sr., one of their linebackers. Yetur Gross-Matos, hamstring injury. One of their linebackers, Jeremy Chin and Von Bell, both safeties. One with a shoulder, one with a quadricep injury, former and latter. Bradley Bozeman, center. Taylor Moton, now he's just resting. And then Troy Hill also getting a rest day. Now here are your DNPs. DJ Johnson for personal reasons. Adam Thielen for rest. And then Deshaun Williams for knee, one of their defensive ends. So the team that is banged up the most is definitely the Carolina Panthers. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything if you're the New Orleans Saints, who have been consistently inconsistent all season long, no matter who they have been playing. Still, it is worth noting that the New Orleans Saints are hopefully coming in the healthier team. Now, I said this last episode, so before anybody tries to accuse me of saying anything else, I want to go ahead and say that I don't believe Derek Carr should start this week, dealing with two different injuries. He's coming off 2 concussions in the past couple months, as well as got an injury with his throwing arm. So, I think Derek Carr should be rested no matter what, right? I think Jameis Winston should start. We'll see how that goes. If there is a team to kind of take on it and try to have as like I hate to really call any team in the league a softball game, but because we were 20-17 the first time we played this team. I know it was months ago, but still, Carolina Panthers are that team, right? Carolina Panthers are the team you should beat. They are ranked 31st in points allowed. Really weird, by the way. They are ranked 7th in yards allowed and 31st in points allowed. And this is why using yardage as your barometer of success is so, don't do that. Because you're 7th, that would mean they're the 7th best defense in the league, but they're 31st in points allowed. That's no bueno. And their offense is one of the worst in the NFL, 29th in points, 30th in yards allowed. So clearly a New Orleans advantage on both sides of the ball. Now, I know Antonio Carr taking first-team reps. I'm simply giving my opinion. I don't think that he should start this game. Will he probably start? Probably. I'll just be honest with you. I think that New Orleans Saints are going to run Derek Carr until he either has a shoulder fall off or it doesn't work anymore. I think that's going to happen. But I think that it should not be the case. I think that they should start somebody, and until he is 100% healthy, he should be resting. And here's why I believe so strongly. Because I remember the quote from Jameis Winston last year about how the thing is in this league, if you get injured, it's an understood that you don't lose your job because of injury. And he lost his job because of injury. Derek Carr's about to do the same thing. You could hope. A lot of y'all out there are hoping for that. You're like, yes, lose it to injury. I don't care what side of that fence you're on. I would say this, playing a quarterback who is clearly hurt, clearly has had his brain figuratively scrambled over the past couple months due to some massive hits, probably isn't the guy who's best prepared to go play quarterback for you. Now, you are having an opponent who is struggling, an opponent whose season is over. Technically, it's wild, but technically, the Carolina Panthers could probably still win the division if everybody lost and they won all. But seriously, I think that he should rest. We'll see how that ends up going. Nola Gang, who dat to you? Welcome on in to the show tonight. But as far as what the New Orleans Saints are doing well, they have been moving the ball a little bit better offensively. We've definitely seen Chris Olave kind of like pop up and starting to become that guy consistently, what we were hoping him to be over the past few games, which I really do appreciate and enjoy because he was not consistent before. But Chris Olave is up to 890 yards. He's only got 3 touchdowns. I'd love to see him in the end zone more. He's tied with Rashid Shaheed for the most receiving touchdowns on the team. Only one above Jimmy Graham, by the way, who has 2 catches, 14 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Probably a good idea to use him more, maybe just a little bit. And then, of course, you got Alvin Kamara, who is, believe it or not, Alvin Kamara is 80 yards, 79, if you want a specific, 79 yards away from reaching another 1,000-yard season, and he's only played 9 games. He's averaging over 100 yards from scrimmage. He has got a total of 5 touchdowns. Also would love to see him get in the end zone more. And then, we're probably not going to be with Rashid Shaheed, and obviously you don't have Michael Thomas. Your top 2 receivers behind Chris Olave are not present, which means that you're going to be relying more on guys like A.T. Perry and Lynn Bowden, who neither have put up really big games so far. You combine their stats, and they're still below 100 yards receiving. A.T. Perry does have a touchdown, so there is something to be said about that. So this is the game where hopefully you get things figured out. You never call a divisional game an easy game, and I don't think it's going to be an easy game for New Orleans. It is a divisional game, but it's a home game. I would really hope the New Orleans Saints fans at least show up for this game. A 1-11 Panthers game, because I'll be honest, a lot of the games that I pick to go to when I go, especially before I got into writing and sports journalism and all that other stuff, I wanted to go to games I thought they were going to win because I couldn't afford season tickets. I'm not that type of money. I don't know what type of money y'all come from. Rev does not come from season ticket money. Rev comes from go to the games when I can money. And if you want to go to the game, now's a great time because tickets are like as low as $12. It's absolutely ridiculous. Haven't seen that in a long time. And that's kind of scary. I don't think that it's scary as the Saints aren't going anywhere. That's definitely not what I'm trying to say. So be very, very clear. New Orleans Saints are not going anywhere for decades. Y'all are going to have them. Your kids are going to have them. Hopefully that lasts forever. But if you were to go to StubHub and Ticketmaster and stuff, tickets are as low as $12 to $17 right now for this Panthers game. Now, obviously, you're going to be in the upper bowl and the 600s and stuff, but who cares? The 600s can be really fun. I know a lot of y'all out there love the 600s, and some of y'all have season tickets to the 600s. So tickets are cheap, and this is a game, hopefully, everybody looks good. It's also, let me go ahead and preface this before we get too deep into the analysis. If the New Orleans Saints absolutely whoop up, destroy, and demolish the Carolina Panthers, I'm not confidently. That does not make me confident going into the Giants game. Like, this is a game that talent-wise, New Orleans is a superior talent team, and it's really hard to say this, but they're actually the team with the better coaching staff and the better ownership group. And I know Saints fans are going to be really tough pressed to want to believe that statement, but it's true. It's very true. I would rather have Ms. Gale be almost hands-off than Tepper, who is quite literally just ruining the Carolina Panthers' chances of anything. So, yeah, Carolina's a real rough spot right now. Real rough spot. So the New Orleans Saints should win this game handily. You talk about like who is the better team. New Orleans Saints are, even, believe it or not, playing as a better team. Carolina is coming off a 5-game losing streak, most recently losing a close one to Tampa Bay, which is why I want to be very clear. I don't want to sleep on this because Tampa Bay is another team going for the divisional win. And even though they won, Carolina kept it close. 21-18 is certainly a game still. The Tennessee Titans game was 17-10. If you go back to their last win, which actually against the Houston Texans, they won 15-13. Thing is, this team does not score a lot of points. Since week 7, they have not scored more than 18 points. In fact, the only time they've scored 18 points was the Tampa Bay game. And before that, the most points they had scored is 15. They have scored 10 points twice and 13 points twice over the past 6 games. This is an offense that is really struggling. Now, before that, like their first 6 games of the season, they had 3 games of 20 or more points. So they had actually had a little bit of scoring, but they were giving up a lot of points. Like when they lost to Detroit, they lost 42-24. And then they lost to Miami 42-21. And they lost to Seattle 37-27. So defense gave up a lot of points, and then when they lost to the Saints, it was a 20-17 close one. Again, divisional games have a tendency to be close, whether they should be or not, because divisional opponents know each other. I think it's a little bit different in this. I would think it'd be a little bit different in this one because the New Orleans Saints are going against a different coach now. Chris DeBoer is the interim coach for the Carolina Panthers, and he has been a special teams coordinator for about 15 years. So unless he pulls a Harbaugh and suddenly becomes the next great head coach that is a special teams coordinator, he's probably not going to be the option that Carolina sticks with long term. Frank Reich is out, and they have a lot of confusion over there in Carolina about what they're doing identity-wise. Same thing that we've talked about in New Orleans, but the difference is Bryce Young has just not looked good, in my opinion. If you've watched Bryce Young, now he's a rookie, so the big difference between the statement I'm about to make and the statement that y'all are going to hear is this guy's a rookie, so it's understandable to have some growing pains. But he's been a worse quarterback than Derek Carr. Again, at least he's a rookie. Derek Carr's like 33 years old, so you literally will give him more leeway, especially if y'all been reading any of the news coming out of Carolina about how much Tepper was really like trying to insert himself and manipulate that situation. If Bryce Young is going to have any chance, it can't be with some of the stories that we've been reading here lately about the Carolina Panthers. But all that said, all that aside, Bryce Young is certainly not having a good season, and they've never really been able to get anything figured out, right? So you had him have, I would say, an okay performance. Speaking of Bryce Young, here in this past week, I wouldn't say it was terrible. I mean, it wasn't great. I mean, he threw 2 interceptions, but he's also playing from behind one interception, but he's also playing from behind against Tampa. He did throw below 50%, and he has only thrown above 60% 5 games ago. Every game since then, so like the past 4 games for Bryce Young, he's thrown, I think, 55% or less, with the most recent one being 48. So, again, just when we talk about like how bad have they been, that's how bad. Also, in that same stretch, they've given up around 21 sacks. So they have really, really struggled lately. And that's what happens when you're a 1-11 team, right? You're a bad team. So coaching, players, everything is just not really working. So for New Orleans, this is your bounce back opportunity, right? I mean, you hope for help around the league. Like you hope the Packers help you out, who are playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they're playing in Green Bay. That could be a pretty big deal. Why do we care so much about that? Well, Green Bay in December is a little frigid, and teams in Tampa aren't exactly known for their frigidity. Probably not even a word. But seriously, I mean, you look around, yes, New Orleans Saints have a shot. Sorry, that's next week, right? Yeah, that's next week. The Bucks play the Falcons this week, and then next week you're hoping for Green Bay to help you out. And this week is kind of like a weird mixed bag of you don't really care, but at the same time you do. Technically, you want the Bucks to win, but it doesn't matter. You need the Falcons to lose, you need the Bucks to lose. They're playing each other. They both can't lose. They could technically tie. So if you're rooting for something, root for a tie. Nobody wins. So then you got next week where you're going to have Tampa playing in Green Bay, and then you're going to have the Falcons playing in Carolina. So it doesn't really get much easier. Then the New Orleans Saints will have the visiting Giants, 2 home games in a row. So let's talk about how this team can win. Antonio says, could you imagine if we would have had to deal with CJ for the next 10 years? Look, man, I was always a CJ Stroud over Bryce Young guy. I am. And we'll see how he ends up developing. But I always say this, man. Like, I never judge a guy off the first, couple years, especially as a quarterback. He got through in a horrible situation. Carolina was not a team ready to go. New head coach, and that ownership group is just abysmal, in my opinion. And we'll see how it plays out, right? It's and I said it before. I think that Jameis Winston should start this game just based on health reasons alone, but that's probably not going to happen. If y'all have looked at the injury report, pretty sure you're going to have Derek Carr cleared from concussion protocol, which means it's going to come down to, is he comfortable throwing? And I have a feeling he's comfortable throwing. So, yeah. Oh, boy. It's going to be a long week. But I still love and appreciate y'all, though. Sorry, y'all. Oh, man, this whole thing has been a fiasco. It's warm up this week, but snow probably comes by next week. We'll see. Dupree says, I missed the last show. Did you already talk about Mickey's reaction to our fans booing on Sunday? I mean, we did talk about it a little bit, and just be honest, I'm not going to expect Mickey to be throwing anybody under the bus. He did talk about how he was disappointed, and Mickey's always going to try to put a positive spin. It's just that any general manager is generally not going to be negative during a season, so I don't really read into it, but yeah. Black Koshinomi says, is Carr really getting the start this week? Seems likely. It is possible that Winston ends up being the starter, but that would seem to be the case. If we're looking at how things are going right now, that would seem to be where things are leading to. That is not a guarantee, but it is probably what I would expect to happen. I expect Derek Carr to start, even though I don't want him to. Yeah, sorry, y'all. How many wins will it take for the division at this point? Like we said last episode, probably 3 out of 2 minimum, 4 out of 1 preferred. And I just, can they make that run? Yeah, they did it last year. Will they make that run? I honestly don't know. But can they? Absolutely. By the way, appreciate you always supporting the channel. The key is here is you're a 5-7 team. You got to at least win this one, right? New Orleans kind of has to win their next 2, get to 500, and then week 16 is the big one. Because then they want to go in an away game against a Rams team that is finally starting to put things together. If you can win those games, you've got a better shot at it. But here's the big thing. Truthfully, this is what's most important. Of your remaining 5 games, the last 2 weeks you have to win, and you have to win this week. You have 3 division games left. If the New Orleans Saints want to conquer the division, they have to win all 3 division games. And technically still help or get help because the Atlanta Falcons have a lead on you. New Orleans has to win all 3 of their divisional games and preferably one of the other 2 that they have remaining to give you the division. Thankfully for them, they're playing the Carolina Panthers this week, which on paper is an easy first start. This is a very, on paper, easy end of the year compared to what the rest of the teams on your schedule have. So, for example, you just played what's arguably the toughest game left on your schedule. You just played the Detroit Lions, and you lost. That was the best team remaining. The only other team that has an equal to you schedule, and I would say that theirs is slightly tougher, is Atlanta. Atlanta has Tampa, Carolina, Colts, Bears, Saints, right? That Colts team is kind of like the wild card of that. How well will they be? Or how good will they be, rather? How good will that Colts team play? Tampa has got the toughest road because they play Atlanta this week, then Green Bay, then they play Jacksonville, then New Orleans, then Carolina. So they actually have 3 teams with winning records or at 500 that they've got to face. Tampa has the toughest road, and then New Orleans arguably has the easiest. It's arguable. I'm not saying they do. I'm saying it's arguable with Carolina, the Giants, the Rams, who are 500, Tampa, and then the Falcons, who are 500. So technically, there's not a single above 500 team on that run, whereas at least the Colts play the Falcons, and at least the Jaguars play the Bucs. The Saints technically have the easiest, but yeah. What do you think about Bobby Slowick for new head coach or offensive coordinator? Well, he's not going to go be offensive coordinator because he's already offensive coordinator under DeMeco Ryans in his first year. If you offered him the full-time job, he might take it. But do you risk it after a guy who's had 1 season as an OC? Just 1? We'll see. Dupree says all 3. Sorry to sound like Godfather, but probably won't happen. Look, I'll be real. I don't think the New Orleans Saints win the division at this point because they've lost key games that they should have won. It can still happen, though, and I'm not trying to be negative. But, for example, just being honest, should have beat Atlanta. They should have. They absolutely should have beat Atlanta. And we know going back that they should have beat Green Bay in week 3. I know that's going all the way back, revisionist history and all that. They should have beat week 3 Packers. They should have beat Atlanta. And then the biggest, most egregious one, in my opinion, is losing to the Minnesota Vikings, who had just lost Kirk Cousins. The man literally, Dobbs came in, literally didn't even know anything, comes in, and just whoops up on New Orleans. That was the worst one. So I haven't seen anything from the Saints team that makes me believe that they go to the playoffs. But there is a path to that. Should have beat Houston. I'm at least okay losing to Houston because I believe Houston is a good team. I really do. I believe Houston is a good team. So I'm okay with that one, even though I'm not, happy about a loss. I'm never happy about the Saints losing, but at least I get that one. Because I really like DeMeco Ryans as a young head coach. I really like Bobby Slowick as an offensive coordinator. I love the young team they're putting together there. They built a great left tackle. After they got their great left tackle, then they went and got their quarterback of the future that they wanted. I really like what the Houston Texans are doing. So you don't even want to know about their cap situation or how many picks they have. That'll just be depressing. And I'm not trying to tell y'all to switch. Just saying they've got, $60 million in draft cap. Now, keep in mind that New Orleans will find ways to sign guys, right? I'm just saying that they've got a butt ton of cap space. They have, next year, I think they've got Cleveland's pick next year in the first round. So the worse Cleveland does, and Cleveland's kind of started to slump a little bit here at the end of the year, the better that is for them. And just say this, man. I think that Houston's in a really good position. Next year, they've got a 3rd, 4th. So they got all those. They've got our 7th. And then the year after that, it's also looking pretty peachy. So they're in a good spot. Short answer, they're in a good spot. A lot of Saints fans probably pretty jealous of where they're at. So should have beat them all, to be honest. No team is elite this season. I'd say nobody in the NFC feels really elite, with the exception of, because I will not, sully the name of the Eagles. Even though they lost, I still think, I really do. I don't know how y'all are. I still think Eagles are the best team in the league at the moment, but sometimes the best team loses. That happens. That's not really a big deal. Saying Houston has a bright future. Antonio, I'm just saying that on paper. I'm not even saying on paper. I'm saying if it was Madden, probably the next 3 years on your Madden squad, don't be surprised if they're good. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if for the next 3 or 4 years, they're really good in Madden. Just by default. So, all of that said, New Orleans Saints have got to win. New Orleans Saints have got to win. So, yeah, here we are. I want to actually get y'all's thoughts. Normally, we go real stat by stat. But I want to get y'all's thoughts, and we'll get to Aaron here in just a second. What are y'all's thoughts about this game? What do you need to want to see? Do you think it's time? Wow. Harsh. Aaron. All right, I'm going to read this, Aaron, because I respect you supporting the channel. I really do. Do you think it's time for Cameron Jordan to retire? I feel like he's been non-existent. Also, if we lose Carolina, we're done. Trade AK to a good team because he deserves it and get picks. Draft quarterback round 1. All right, so there's layers here. Let me get it. Number 1, I do agree with you that Cameron Jordan has dropped off as a pass rusher, but at the same time, he is still a very good player. I think he should be part of a rotation. I do think that he has 2 good years left in him. He is no longer an elite pass rusher. I do not believe that he is a bad player or he is playing poorly. He is still very good against the run, and he still gets pressure on quarterbacks. He just no longer has that last little bit that made him elite where he was winning. So he's actually, according to SIS, only has 2 less pressures than Carl Granderson, even though he has 3.5 less sacks, right? So again, none of this is to say that like he's secretly playing really well and the stats are lying. I do think that he's taken a regression, and that happens as you get older. He is 34 years old. I mean, the dude's literally my age. But I do think that he's still a quality player. He's just no longer an elite player. But I do think that he's still quality and can play till he's 35, 36 and be effective, but he's going to be working closer towards being a rotational guy. Whereas for a long time, he was basically an Iron Man, where he could play every snap, never hurt him, kept doing it. And I think what you're going to see is as his seasons progress and continue, you see that drop down and down. This year, he's seeing 78% of the snaps, which is actually 4% more than he did last year. And what I think happens is the next year or two, that goes down to 65, 60-ish%. It becomes a rotational piece. And what happens is on third downs that are pure passing downs, they probably take him off the field if they have found somebody better. The sad truth is there isn't anybody better at the moment. I just think that he needs to become a deeper part of the rotation, but he is still a quality player. And if you watch the tape on defense, he is still a very quality run defender. And you don't want to just like replace him just for the sake of replacing him unless you find something better. Now, as far as your other part, I do agree that if you lose against Carolina, it's complete barbecue chicken. It's done. We're going to start talking about offseason stuff. And then trade AK to a good team because he deserves it and get picks. My only thing there is I don't think you're getting anything for AK. So you're basically asking the franchise to put a player first. And I'm not trying to sound like anti-player here, but like, what franchise would do that and why? Like, why would you do that? You're not going to really get anything for Alvin Kamara. No offense to Alvin Kamara. He's just, y'all saw what happened this offseason with running backs, right? Y'all saw it. Nobody wanted to give running backs a decent contract. And all those guys were younger than Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara will be 29 next year. He's got a 5-year, $75 million contract. While it is getting close to wrapping up, that's a big contract. $15 million a year for a running back is a lot of money. League doesn't want to pay that. Teams don't want to pay that. And you're probably going to see a restructure after the season. I don't think anybody's trading for Alvin Kamara. And just the argument of get him out just for a fan service almost thing, I don't think the team would do that. As a fan of players, absolutely would love him to have a shot at winning. But also as a fan of the Saints, I want him to retire a New Orleans Saint, and I realize that is selfish of me because that means he'll probably never sniff a ring. His best opportunity to get a ring was in 2018. And we know what happened. We're not bringing it up to cause pain. It is what it is. Right? Alvin Kamara is the best, in my opinion, probably the best face of the franchise right now. He's everything that I want in a player. He's everything that I want on this team. And he's nobody would trade for him. So, like, I'm sure there's somebody out there that would throw a 6th or a 7th rounder for Alvin Kamara to ride off his like final 3-4 years maybe. But yeah, I don't see that happening. And it sucks, but he deserves better. He did, right? Alvin Kamara deserved better than what he got. He's just one of those players that you can't help but root for, and he deserved better than what happened. But that's not what happened. And it is what it is. And I agree, Antonio. 2018 is hard to get over. Good news is we can go beat the brakes off the Carolina Panthers to make us feel better. And that would make me feel better. I don't know about y'all. It would make me feel better if we go beat the brakes off the Carolina Panthers. Like if we pull a Dallas Cowboys and win like 33-10 on them. Yes, beat the brakes off of them, please. I need a reason to smile about football, even if it's only for 3 hours. Even if I come back to reality after the game and go, it's still the New Orleans Saints. I really just need a beat the brakes off them game because there's not been a beat the brakes off them game this year. And even if it only happens once, I just want to beat the brakes off them game. I just want the Saints to come out and go, damn it, we are better. I guess you can count the New England Patriots game as a beat the brakes off game because they literally didn't score. But the reason I don't count that as a beat the brakes off game is because it took the defense scoring and the offense finally decided to wake up and score. Really haven't had to just beat the ever-loving out of the other team game. Do that to Carolina. Make me feel good about Saints football. Right? Please don't give them a 21-point lead because the sad truth is you could recover from a 21-point lead against Carolina. You're not going to do it against a good team. And I would argue a very good team. Some people have been really taking shots at Detroit. I don't know why. A good team in Detroit. I don't know why people are saying they don't play anybody. You play who's on your scorecard, man. I'm rooting for Detroit. I want them to have success. I really do. Mike says Hill and Kamara are the only reason to watch this train wreck. Mike, I don't know if you saw Hill is on the injury list, so we might not even see Hill this week, which could be scary. To recap for those who are just coming in, the injury report for the New Orleans Saints as of today, you've got did not participate Taysom Hill with a foot and hand injury, Rashid Shaheed, Kendre Miller, Isaiah Foskey, and Chris Olave, but Olave is due to illness. So that is something to keep in mind. Might not even have Taysom in this game, which could make scoring even more difficult because he has been one of those prolific playmakers on the field. On the field at all. Agent says 31 teams a year don't win a Super Bowl. It's not guaranteed. He'll get one anywhere else. Plus, I don't think AK wants a cheap Super Bowl. He's not built that way. I don't think so either, but I also don't know the man personally, so I can't speak for him. I would love him to retire a New Orleans Saint. One of the biggest things that upset me is that Ingram, I'm going to be very specific. Ingram's agent screwed Ingram out of the opportunity to be a New Orleans Saint his entire career, right? And if you don't want to take my word for it, Alvin Kamara hated that Mark Ingram was not there in 2019. Right now, I am glad that Mark Ingram returned and retired as a New Orleans Saint and finished with 52 touchdowns and 6,500 rushing yards and 8,300 total yards. I do love that. But he spent basically 2.5 years away from this franchise that he shouldn't have, and he should have retired a Saint. And I feel the same way about Alvin Kamara. He should retire a New Orleans Saint. Cameron Jordan should retire a New Orleans Saint. There are just some guys who they bleed so much for this team. They do so much for this community. I don't want them to ever go anywhere. And maybe that's selfish of me. Alvin Kamara is one of those guys. I don't want Alvin Kamara to go anywhere. I want him to retire right here in New Orleans. And I want that man to live his life in New Orleans as a king. I want Alvin Kamara to be 45, walking down to the same wing spot, having the same good time, living life. Honestly, God, that's what I want. Honestly, God, that's what I want. So, we'll see. Tragic says, I'm sorry, I don't support a beatdown of Carolina. Loomis may give DA an extension if that happens. I'll be honest, Tragic. DA's job is likely safe regardless. Pete Carmichael's might not be, but I really don't feel like, unless the Saints just lose their final 5 games, I don't think DA is going anywhere. I know nobody wants to hear me say that. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic. But I don't think DA is going anywhere, so it doesn't really matter. I think DA's here 3 years. And I kind of said that when we signed him. I think DA's here 3 years. Now, he might get fired in his 3rd year, but I think he's here 3 years. And unless they just literally bomb out the final 5 games of the season, I think you're going to have to suffer with DA, y'all. And I'm not trying to be horrible to you. I'm not trying to make y'all sad. I think DA's not going anywhere. So if you beat the brakes off or you don't beat the brakes off, I don't think it matters. I think that Pete Carmichael's job might go away. But I think DA's safe. I mean, that sucks, but God, that's such a depressing statement. Is what it is. Is what it is. If DA's job is safe, then I have zero hope for next season, no matter what we do. I think that's fair. I'm not trying to be negative, y'all. I'm just saying that there's nothing that we've seen from the facility that makes us go or should make you go, he's on the hot seat, right? Now, I know I've made the t-shirts, and those are fun. I love the t-shirts. I really do. I think the t-shirts are hilarious. The t-shirts are basically a gimmick to get y'all to smile through the pain for him saying to keep doing what you're doing and we got to be better, and I might make one of chopping the wood. So Randall says, I will bet you my house that Dennis Allen won't have a job with the Saints next year. As long as I don't have to bet my house, I'll make that bet with you, Randall. If it's just a free bet of I get your literal house, if he's still on the team next year, I'm taking the bet. Now, if I have to put my house on the line, no, because I have 3 kids and a family. But if you are just giving away houses like you're freaking Oprah, sure, I'll take your house. And then I'll probably sell it immediately because I need money and I don't need your house. But what has transpired like between general managing and just the season to make us think that Dennis Allen's getting fired? I would love it to happen. Please be right. Sell it back to him. Yeah, sure. Call the same bank you already got a mortgage with and say, I need another mortgage because I literally gave this house away for $1 and I'll sell it right back to you for its market value. I'm just being real, right? I'm keeping it truthful. I try to do that, man. I don't see it because for whatever reason, they seem to believe in his vision and believe that they can turn it around and that just stuff isn't clicking right yet. Right? I hope I'm wrong. I'm saying it here on the show. I hope I'm wrong. 100%. But I don't think a good OC is going to come coach for DA. I think they were stuck with Pete Carmichael. And I mean, I would hope that maybe they go to college, do something to try to change it up. But yeah, I think that DA is here another year. Maybe he's here part of the year, right? Maybe he just gets fired. I don't know. I'm just saying that what about Mickey? Anything about Mickey Loomis? And you tell me straight up, what about Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson make you think Dennis Allen's on the hot seat? Honestly, and I'm not trying to be rude at all with that statement. I promise you I'm not. Because I want to be convinced. But what about either of those individuals who have the power to make this decision make you believe he's on the hot seat? And if you give me a legitimate argument, I'm here for it. I want to believe that. So Randall says there's no way Mickey Loomis passes on Daniels if he's there when the Saints are picking. There's no way, huh? There's no way? No way at all. Okay. Randall, I'm just going to find you some of the finest cardboard the world has to offer and tarps because your homes are gone. Your homes are gone. TJ says 2 words, Lamar Jackson. Why did they call Pete the mad genius when he took over for Sean Payton when he was out those couple years? The only thing that I can really stand on is I like to use people's words. Drew Brees and Sean Payton both talked about how good he was at game planning and the detail work in the week, like the scouting work, the detail work, knowing how to attack, things like that. I think it's very clear that situational football is not his strength. He really struggles with that in terms of like in games, this is happening, quick adjustments, quick reactions, knowing the right call to make. I think Pete Carmichael has more offensive acumen than every single one of us in this chat combined, even if there are former NFL offensive players sitting here. Probably. I don't think there are. Aaron Alvarez could have played in the NFL. I don't know. Shout out to our chat. I just think that he was good at the game planning and seeing things, but he's not the guy that when the pressure's on, the pot's hot, he's somebody you trust. I think that's just kind of who he is. So I believe Sean Payton and Drew Brees when they said that he was good at what he was doing, and what he was doing was helping with game planning and everything. I just don't think that he's a great situational play caller or offensive coordinator. And that is what it is, right? I'm not trying to fault him. I'm not trying to trash talk him. I just think that there's now about 30 games of him being the OC. It's pretty damn consistent. And I think he is what he is. But I do think that, I don't think that he managed to stay in the NFL under Sean Payton and with Drew Brees for 10 years and was secretly poo-poo. I don't, right? I really don't. So I think that you just have a guy that is good at something. He's just not good at what he's currently doing. And the fact that he wore the title offensive coordinator all those years just ends up being quite misleading, frankly. It just ends up being quite misleading. But he started off for those that don't remember or don't know the history of Pete Carmichael, he started off as a tight ends coach for the Browns and an offensive assistant for the then Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. And he was an assistant with the Chargers. And then he came to New Orleans. If you're curious about that connection, it's a Drew Brees connection bringing him to New Orleans. And then he was the quarterback's coach for 2 years, technically 3 years, became the passing game coordinator, just like Curry did, and then the offensive coordinator in 2009. So the connection was always Drew. And maybe he just worked and had that really well with Drew. But he's also, by the way, I try to talk a little less trash about him, FYI, because even though he's not from Louisiana, did y'all know, fun fact, this is actually the second Louisiana team he's coached. Because in his mid-20s, he was actually the quarterback's coach for Louisiana Tech. So Pete's been in Louisiana a long time, and he's done a lot for Louisiana sports. And I want to give him his laurels and flowers for that. But I think he's bad at what he's currently doing. Right? He's bad at what he's currently doing. Right? I think the answer to your question, Deuce, lies in the mountain of outrage they are seeing from fans and Saints media. Hard to ignore that, in my opinion, all those Lions jerseys in the dome. I think the only flip side of that is what they're going to see this Sunday is just a lot of empty dome. Because I don't think Carolina's going to travel to see this game. So for the first time in a long time, we're going to see the New Orleans Saints have, God, I hate to say it, a half-empty stadium. And that really sucks. That really sucks. But it is what it is, right? I hate to see the dome like that. And I do hope that Saints fans still show up. I really do. Because I don't ever want to wish negative on the Saints. I want them to win, even though I can't stand Dennis Allen right now. I can't. I can't stand Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael. I'm ready for them to be done. I'm ready for this season to be over. I'm ready for all that to be completed. I'm over it. I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for something fresh. I'm ready for them to actually give a real effort at rebuilding or even retooling. Because there are definitely people that you can keep here who are good enough to contribute on this roster and are good enough to be quality players. But I'm definitely done with the Loomis thing. He got his shot that I thought he deserved. And didn't. I'm sorry, the Al thing got a shot I thought he deserved. P got a shot. It's done. It's done. Sucks, man. But yeah, you're going to have basically COVID stadium. And we have not seen the New Orleans Saints have that low type participation in a long time. And I hope it's temporary. I think that's the only thing I can hold on to is because my podcast and y'all, we're not going anywhere as a community. I'm one of those guys that I've seen the Saints suck before, and I'll probably see them suck again. So I'm fine. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to love my football. I'm not going anywhere. But dang it, I hope this doesn't last very long because I loved and cherished the days when they were good. Those just aren't those days right now. Pelicans time? Yeah, we are rooting for the Pelicans, man. I need the Pelicans to be a little bit more consistent. As I actually mentioned them, gave them a shout out earlier on the show tonight because you can't go losing to the Bulls team, which they're the freaking New Orleans Saints in the NBA. Can't go losing to the Bulls and then beating playoff teams. You got to have some level of consistency. I know they're working on it, and it's a long season. So as long as they get healthy and play fine, I'm not going to gripe too much, but that kind of irked me a little bit. Not going to lie. It annoyed me is probably the better word. I don't think they should be 12-10. I think the Pelicans should be much closer to about 14-8, 15-7 if you've watched any of their games. And they have that 5-game losing streak that really got on my nerves. But you come out and just like mollywop the Clippers. I'm sorry, the Kings, who are a good team, right? Lost to the Bulls. And then the game before that, did exactly what they should have done, beat up on the Spurs. So I just need consistency from them, not inconsistency. Like when they beat the 76ers, right? Like that was a good game. I don't know if y'all watched that one. 76ers are like a 13-16. So anyway, I won't get too into basketball, but I am rooting for the Pels as always. Just need them to be a little bit more consistent. And also need Matt Ryan to come back and start hitting them threes. So Pre says, I just want my team to give me hope. Going 3-10 would be awful, but if I have hope that I can stick by them easier than what I'm seeing right now. Mediocrity sucks. And no, believe it or not, TJ, Zion is not hurt. Please don't speak that evil juju. He has played 18 games. Do not speak that evil juju over our team. They've actually been so concerned about making sure that he's healthy. He is in back-to-backs. He'll actually typically rest in back-to-back games. So hopefully he plays well. He's actually only playing, I think, 31 minutes right now. So they are working it in slowly. And he's played well. So I think he's played well. I've enjoyed watching him. By the way, John, big thank you supporting me and my family. I see it. I appreciate it. John donating to the channel. Be honest, we're probably stuck with mediocrity until Loomis is gone. I mean, he's too attached to what his family. He's stepping out of his comfort zone. You could be right. I hope you're wrong. You could be right, but I hope that you're wrong. I really do hope that you're wrong. Like, hardcore hope that you're wrong. Like, hardcore. Loomis's MO is mediocrity. I mean, maybe it is now, but he literally was the reason this team started winning. But anyway, guys, score predictions real quick before we wrap up. Score predictions. What do you think the New Orleans Saints are going to do this game? I think the Saints are going to win. I think they're going to win a good one. And by their standards, I think they're going to win 24-14. Which by New Orleans Saints standards, that's a good win this year. 24-14. Daniel says 16-19 or 16-9 Saints. Good to see you, Daniel. TJ says 17-14 Panthers. I hate you. Jay says 24-20 Panthers. Antonio says 20-17 again with the Saints winning. Tank Atone says 34-14 beatdown. Would love to see it. Derek says an ugly 20-10 win. Bim says 34-17. Aaron Alvarez 28-7. I would take almost all those because I do want the New Orleans Saints to win. Dupree says 28-24. Letting them score 24 would be the first time that the Panthers have scored that many points in like 8 games. Goodness gracious. They've really been a bad team, especially now they got their coach fired. But we'll see how it is. 28-3 is Lester Shipman. We're always here for that score. We will be here following the game on Sunday, hopefully after a big win. I'm needing the New Orleans Saints to give me a little bit of love, a little bit of life after 3 straight losses because you haven't seen them win in a month, right? They'll play on the 10th. They've not won a game since November 5th. So, got to get right back on the horse. Who dat? God bless. We'll catch all of you after the game on Sunday. Appreciate every single one of you. Deuces. That's me. We outie.